And now I will start with chapter 37, and it's titled, A Not So Serious Note. I'm not particularly fond of writing this embarrassing personal material. I'm real good at keeping secrets. I truly am. You haven't ever even heard most of them. I have many in the compartment in my head, but I get to read this story as I edit it. And when I write or dictate, I see it happening in my mind, and I see you as my audience seeing it with me. I am frequently amused at what I write, and sometimes I'm just totally embarrassed. So since we went this far together, here's another admission I never said out loud before. Overcoming my fear of rejection. Overcoming my fear of rejection in this life mission. I found that out on the other side. It amuses me now. Since my return, I actually enjoy rejection from others, especially those I do not like. However, it still ain't easy. Rejection has always been my secret personal demon, spawned by my childhood fear of abandonment. I found this out on the other side. I was also told by the teachers that it is my goal, upon my return, to overcome this fear, and that it is merely a result of accumulated emotional experience. By Sunday afternoon, I felt almost human again. I felt strong, but sensed a familiar fear approaching. I asked Erna to leave me in Swakopmund with my sleepy bag and my dob kit. I heard strong rumors at the mission that Jimmy was somewhere on the coast, and I was hell-bent on finding him. I was relaxed after a few days of Erna's history lessons and long walks in the sand, soothed by small, freezing waves crashing around my ankles and my calves. I tanned slowly, and now, understanding their point of view, lost my sense of fear of the white Afrikaners. I looked into the mirror on the last day, and I actually looked healthy and happy. I was on a real high for weeks. It really frightened me. It felt like I was on some kind of magic drug. I felt invincible and strong as an ox. But most importantly, somehow I knew for certain I had to face abandonment and rejection, and all those fears again. I had an incredible urge that I must make friends with my fears. Fear of rejection, fear of abandonment, fear of failure, fear of starving, fear of loneliness, fear of mosquitoes, and fear of just about anything and everything that moves in either America or Africa. Hell, I had nothing left but fear. I had become a first-class wimp. I had no personal possessions in an unfamiliar foreign country. I didn't speak their language. I had no visa, no sponsor, no job, no money, no clothing, nothing to eat or drink, no place to lie my head, no friends, no family, and no relatives. I ended up just like my old man, completely homeless and stock full of fear. And even worse, I was taking handouts from strangers in the streets. After a fierce argument, Erna dropped me off reluctantly at the mall, an Atlantic Ocean cove, and gorgeous beach behind a great stone jetty shaped like a half moon around it. Otherwise, it was 8,000 miles of ocean that was in front of me, looking straight at Wilmington, Delaware. I walked slowly around the area, then tentatively toward the empty beach, observing everything in sight or hearing as I was trained to do. Well kept. No trash. And the sand was raked. I sat down carefully in the sand, glancing around and seeing no witnesses. I had a good old-fashioned shoulder-shaking, gut-wrenching cry. I knew for sure I was done for. I was totally beaten. There was absolutely no hope for my recovery. I was alone and finally out for the count. I tilted my face toward the brilliant sun and screamed as loud as I could in total and absolute frustration, defeat, and desperation. I screamed, "Ah, you fucking win. I give up." Instantly, A loud voice beckoned in my head. "Give up what, Tommy? Give up what?" Suddenly I understood. I laughed myself silly. I rolled over in the sand. I got it. I realized I got exactly what I always wanted. A chance to start the race over with nothing from a complete dead stop. I had begged since the 1980s for a brand new start. I begged, I pleaded, and I begged even louder. My loud, exaggerated laughter slowed down to a smile of total clarity. It was like being shot between the eyes with a silver bullet. I understood the exact point of my mission. Give up what? I had nothing left to give up. I already gave it all up. I got up without any hesitation or plan whatsoever, and driven by pure instinct, I walked what seemed like a few blocks to the nearest residential home section and started knocking on doors. "I'm an American. Does anyone speak English?" Yelling loudly, pointing at my mouth. At the sixth house, this is not an exaggeration, at the sixth house, a little African kid came out of the door and took my hand, and without saying a word, led me several blocks away. Knocked on the door, stepped back politely, so the answering person would see me first, and waited. The door opened slowly. A familiar face appeared. My God, it was Jimmy. I was in total shock. He yelled something at me, racing to hug me. "Tommy, we heard you died." And he almost bowled me over. "I did. It was great, and I can't wait to tell you all about it." And we laughed till we cried. I profusely thanked the kid, and the kid went away laughing at us laughing. God, we laughed hard. "I made it. I fucking made it," I screamed over and over. "I fucking made it," beating my chest, imitating my newly found Afrikaner macho cultural personality. He pushed me through the door, threw my sleeping bag and my kit into the corner. "You're staying with me, dude." I asked Jimmy politely if I could sit in his only chair in the center of the room. "I need to chill out a bit and relax, Jimmy. I'm really fucked up, dude." "Hell," he said, "I can do better than that." My brother, and with a big old-fashioned grinning American Indian type ceremonial flair, he reached down for something in an ashtray on the floor and ceremoniously and conspiratorially lit up the most humongous joint I have ever seen. When he got it fired up to his satisfaction, he began circling around me continuously like a Native American shaman doing a tribal war dance, continually circling my chair, blowing smoke directly in my face. Suddenly, something changed. I felt my shoulders involuntarily sag, my tension letting go, as well as the knots in my solar plexus. I was relaxing. After a few moments, I just couldn't talk. I was so stoned. But I smiled at his antics, and red-hot, steamy tears streamed truthfully down my face. An hour later, we were both laughing together out loud about our mutually miserable African experiences. He hated his job, and I hated mine. So we both decided, screw world teach, let's switch jobs. He wanted to go out into the bush and die for his country like I did. I wanted to teach English in civilization, where I was certain I would find some kind of mass. When we finished the joint, the plan made terrific sense for both of us and seemed like a win-win, fair trade idea that suited all parties. Now all we had to do is convince the Rossing Foundation that he currently worked for to hire me. We had to convince World Teach to approve the transfer of Jimmy to a new duty station. He told me there was plenty of openings since our group members were dropping out frequently, and another member of our team recently died from meningitis. She was a great gal and had a huge sense of humor, and most importantly, I really liked her. Finally, we had to convince the Republic of Namibia's Ministry of Education and other ministries to approve the whole idea, and then find enough money for me to survive until we got it all done. We were both stoned enough to know for absolute certainty this plan was a piece of cake. The plot thickened. Dun, 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 dun. Enter, stage right, in the person of John Flaherty from Senator Joe Biden's office. Next day, I got a surprise phone call from my friend Jane in Wilmington. She had family at the Rossing Foundation School. It was beyond my imagination how she did it. She quoted, "John said Joe Biden will get your money to you somehow." Truly, I could kiss that man. I convinced Ursula, Jimmy's boss at Rossing, that I could easily take over his English classes immediately at the foundation school in Veneta, a suburb of Swakopmund, yet still within the city limits. Most of you would immediately recognize the contrast of the separation of classes, no whites. The final deal maker was, "Ursula, I can also teach criminal law and English to the police," waving a copy of my resume about the law school with the law school diploma under her nose. Politically astute, she absolutely loved the idea and got solidly behind the formalities of pulling off the personnel switch. She was so sure we could pull it off, I was officially given a bed to sleep in, but no mattress. Jimmy would take it with him from his old pad. Now I had a roof over my head, a few bucks advanced by Erna, and a promise of a job and a dinner at Ursula's house with her husband and family a few nights a week until I could afford to pay to eat. All of these decisions happened through one single meeting at Ursula, in her house alone. Then by the end of the next day, I felt a real family connection to the entire Swakopmund community, and boy was I psyched at her interest in me starting an Olympic development national judo team when I was teaching the cops. Note. Now truly, imagine that. A complete reversal of fortune within a 24-hour period caused by a simple change in my personal attitude. I was snatched from the jaws of defeat by simply following my instinct to knock on any door. I was truly back in the game.